you very much. And thanks for Gulf Conferences for giving us this opportunity to join a thought leadership forum and learn from the experts. My name is Hashem. I'm Director of Global Strategic Partnerships with Boclips. And we basically are joining this conference for one main goal, is to listen and learn from the experts in higher education about the challenges, about the opportunities, and see how Boclips can collaborate, can contribute, and help address some of these challenges and achieve a couple of these opportunities. So basically, I will try first and reflect on some of the points that our colleague speakers have highlighted, especially during yesterday's session. So part of the opportunities that I think Boclips can target and can work with higher education institutions to tackle are, and I will quote, re-engineering schools, implement learner-driven personalized learning, and then how to do the work with students and not for them, and then move towards universities without walls, and then embrace diversity and achieve curriculum sustainability. So I'm not claiming that we are able to achieve all of these goals ourselves, but we believe that we can highly contribute and add value with our partners to strongly help and move forward and achieve these goals. So with the digital or with the education system transformation over the last couple of decades, today students and teachers' demand for rich media content is more than ever. And that is actually to emphasize the fact that learning today has to be really captivating and attractive for students and both teachers. These rich media content are very important for different educational institutions, including publishers, edtech platforms, to help them improve their students' achievements and also provide vital tools and new products to their audience. And also for ministries of education, schools, higher education institutions. These rich media materials are also core materials to help them prepare the students for the workplace by giving them conceptual bulb moments about what they are learning in their day-to-day learning journey, and also help encourage digital citizenship. And mainly for educators, these rich media materials are very important to help them deepen learning for their students and achieve higher level of engagement. Now, this demand or increasing demand for such rich media materials comes with a massive challenging and also adding actually a huge challenge and a pressure on instructional designers when it comes to deploy such materials into their courseware development activities. So these barriers and restrictions that come with looking and deploying these rich materials comes in different ways, and then to target or maybe to just spot the lights on a couple of these challenges, we will start with the discovery of these content materials. So where can I go and find the rich media that is relevant to the course, for example, or materials that I'm building for my students? How can I deliver these, or how can I integrate these materials into my courses, into my products, into my programs to achieve, as an example, some level of individualized learning? And also, how can I manage the rights for these content wherever I find it? And maybe I found the content, I know how to implement it and get it into part of my course, but then how can I manage its copyrights? And finally, how can I trust that this material is trusted, and how can I make sure that it is free of distraction? So I can safely and make sure that when I use it with my students, it's actually achieving its target and not distracting them from the core, let's say, learning outcome that I want to achieve with them. So with these challenges, the idea of Boclips comes across. So Boclips is can be explained or can be described as the gate that connects instructional designers with content creators in a way that all the rich media content that Boclips is presenting from the content creators to the instructional designers are purely curated for educational. And it can be delivered online and offline. So offline means via download, for example, to be adapted in any ecosystem by the institution that is building courses using these rich materials, or on-demand streaming through some kind of technical integration, which can also emphasize the importance of data analytics about the implementation of this content to measure some achievement metrics that the students have, for example, fulfilled when they are watching these materials. And also introducing all the content under one educational like a license to be used across these different materials, and make sure that this content can be adapted and can be localized in a way that it fits, for example, the culture, it fits the individual needs of different students across the world. So to just visualize the connection map on how we are working, basically, we are contracting or signing partnerships with different kinds of content creators who are specialized in education. We clear the rights with these content creators, we bring them into our servers, and then we enrich their content. So we, for example, add metadata, we tag the content materials across different taxonomies, and then we make it available for these institutions who are basically our partners through different type of delivery models. One of them is the streaming via API or LTI integration. So our content, our educational institutions can easily utilize the materials while it reaches them through this type of integration through their different educational platforms, whether it is, for example, digital readers, learning management systems, or any kind of, for example, educational platforms they are using, and help them make these content available to their end users directly through their system. So we are like a hub where we partnership with content creators and then make the content educationally curated and also properly tagged to different age groups, age levels, topics, for example, and make it available through this type of delivery, either download or through integration. So our IP is basically about receiving the content, enriching the content, applying our taxonomy, which is thema taxonomy, and then store all of that in our servers and make it available to our partners by by auto-mapping the content to their special learning outcomes and make it easily accessible, easily searchable, easily also deliverable to their end products, and customize whatever content packages, for example, they are looking to implement within their own systems. This map or this IP actually is helping our partners from both sides to communicate, to understand how effective the materials being used with the students by analyzing the level of engagement of the students with the content, utilizing the data we collect using our AI engine about, for example, let's talk, for example, a video. How many hours being watched by a student? What is the size or the length of the video files that being, for example, watched? What are the main topics that are most watched? So based on that, we can adapt with them and then localize the content to make sure that it fits our student needs. So this journey is actually can help both content creators and also educational institutions to adapt their offerings to match or to fulfill the expectation of our students based on the data we collect on their engagement with our content. So as of today, Boclips have managed to partner with more than 400 different content providers from all over the world. And we are hosting and offering more than 2 million ready-made content that comes across different type of rich media, video, audio, which is podcast, and also interactive materials. So this is a snapshot of some of the partners we are working with. So to name a few, like we are working with TED, we are working with Smithsonian, Crash Course, some news channels where we actually adding to our library a group of news materials that can be used in educational context and help educational institutions keep their curriculum up to date, keep it current, keep it also like modified whenever needs to be modified, and linked with the things that are happening around the students. So over the last year and a half, actually our number of content partners have grown big time. We were like maybe by end of 2020 or half 21, we were at 250 content partners. And today we have actually crossed the 400 partnerships. And this purely comes because of the value that we are adding to our content partners. So we help them reach educational institutions. We help their content really be accessible to the educational institutions in a way that it can be easily searchable, easily adaptable, easily to be embedded into different educational programs and courses. So they appreciated the value we add to them, and they decided actually to use us as a replacement of their initial platform, which they started with, that is YouTube, because we are focusing on education. So their content is really made available to our clients or our actually educational partners based on their specific needs. As I mentioned earlier, so we cross-map the content to different frameworks. We started with our own taxonomy, and then based on the special needs or the different, for example, subjects that our clients are teaching or building courses around, we can cross-map our content to them to make sure that we bring them the content that is applicable, that is like can reach their courses instantly. Now, how we deliver this, or like when I say we are a gate, how we are playing that role. So basically, we offer both like offline content in case, for example, some institutions want to have an in-house, let's say, course development through their own ecosystem, and they don't have the capability to, like the technical capability to integrate with our platform. So we give them a usage license for a number of years. So they, for example, can make sure that the content is available for them as long as they need it. Or we can integrate it through platform API protocols where the content can be on-demand streamed based on, for example, context, based on topics that the student is learning at that moment of time. So integration also can encourage some data analytics where they collect, like our system is collecting the interactions of the students with the content that we license or we play to them through our educational institutions, and give that stakeholders some reports about, for example, the successful of embedding this content into our educational institutions programs, and maybe help them make some decisions in updating their, for example, content with more engaging, with, for example, different styles that will fit into their audience needs and demand. So that is in a nutshell. We actually, as I mentioned, we have joined this conference basically to listen, to hear, to understand, and to adapt, let's say, in our approach, how we can like tackle these challenges, how we can, for example, contribute to solving some of these challenges and also achieve some of the goals that higher education institutions are really targeting to achieve in the next maybe 10 years. Thank you very much for letting us today, and we are happy to receive any questions.
Hashem, thank you very much for a great presentation. I love the fact that you kind of put together the journey from curating content from multiple sources to where it reaches out to the end user, to the students. And again, I find as I come from an instructional design background, and we always said content is a king. So I find to a great extent is as important as the EdTech platform that you view it on. So and I love seeing that journey altogether. Before I move on, I just wanted to check if there is a question from the audience. Even though I could tell that you did a very thorough kind of update. I'll take one.
Thank you. That was very exciting. Also, how we can partner and move things forward. I want to ask you two questions. We spoke a little bit about it yesterday. One is, how can this system that you have, for provision of knowledge and sharing knowledge, can perhaps have a branch into creating an archive of endangered languages and also bilingual books, so then, and also preserving the culture, so there are different ways, philosophies, ways of thinking of the world that are not being captured. And before the languages are extinct, or even the people themselves, that needs to be done in partnership, that we actually are able to convey those messages and understand the world from a point of view of our multiculturalism. Question number one, is that something that you're up to? Be really great. Second, I find interesting the interdisciplinarity, and it's quite new to us because we took, hundreds of years to specialize and to go in depth into it, and we're actually doing partnerships. And now we need to accelerate that to be able to deliver sustainability in the world and a new relationship with the environment and each other. So I was just wondering, like when you have AI assisting with data analysis and so forth, and you can program algorithms to be able to achieve something, is AI able to do, like, let's say, I'm thinking of astrophysics, but my knowledge is limited. My blind spots will not allow me to know how much I do not know about something, but AI in interaction with me should be able to assist and say, well, read more about this, watch that video over there, because your auditory kind of more able to pick up those new words through a combination of reading and auditory, and perhaps entertaining images and so forth. So can AI come to that point, and the program comes to the point that the students will be able to even have a mirror effect of their own blind spots and their best journey, pedagogically speaking?
Yeah, thank you very much. So I'll start with the second question. Just to emphasize, for example, a student, let's put this scenario. So a student is watching or trying to learn something about physics topic, let's say Newton law or whatever. So when they are, for example, trying to learn this topic, we push like couple of, let's say, relevant content based on the context that they are in. So if they are in a digital textbook, we can like integrate a mapped set of content to that topic, and then the student can now start, going through these, and then learn more, or try to learn more about the topic from these videos. So during, like, based on the time they spent of these videos, and the number of videos they watched on this one, we can report back that, okay, this student has really spent, like, for example, his attainment, or let's say his engagement on this topic has exceeded 100%. Like, they watched 1 time or 2 times each video. So that gives us an indication that, okay, for example, that topic and that subject, which is around physics, has attracted the student and he finds it really engaging. So what the system can do is that they can go and look for relevant content, but into like that can add more to what he has learned from the initial set. Exactly. So he build on top of it, and then he can go through that journey, similar to what, for example, algorithms in edutainment now are doing. So you start with something and suddenly you keep, just watching next. So here we are doing it from an educational point of view. Now, on your first question, it was about, sorry?
Endangered languages and thought, ways of thinking, cultural ways of thinking, be able to be captured as well. Because endangered languages speak of the world differently. So if you have bilingual books,
yeah,
you are able to understand the concept.
Yes.
Because its natural original language also help preserve language and thought and knowledge of human traditions that are disappearing, and translate them. So that universities don't have just monocultural Western approach to things. You can open the horizons by just having accessibility, which is your main.
Exactly. So the content we have, as I mentioned in one of the slides, is that it is editable. Editable means that it can be localized. It can be adapted, for example, to specific needs, but the context will remain the same. Now, our partners are coming from different parts of the world. They are coming from Arab words, from Western words, from, for example, other language-speaking words. So we have German content, we have Spanish content, we have Arabic content, we have English content, and they are all.
But you don't have Yoruba or Guarani. This is what I'm saying. There's much more.
Exactly, but to be able to go there, we have, let's say, the capability in translating this on demand. So we need partners to come to us and say, okay, This is a set of, for example, physics topic that you have a nice series, and I want it in my own language. And I want it actually to somehow localize to my own culture at some extent. So language-wise, it's doable. Cultural adaptation, it might not be. It depends on the type of the content. But we are here to listen, to understand that if there is an opportunity to work with someone on, Swahili language, for example, on whatever language that we never addressed, we are more than happy to do that. So like accessibility is something we can start, for example, with subtitles, if that will work. But if we need to go deeper, then dubbing and full translation is something we already have done actually for the Arab world.
Sorry, Hashem, so I'm just going to interrupt for a few minutes. I'm still going to take the first question, then we have one from Dr. Reem. So don't leave. Sure. But I wanted to interrupt with something because I have a 5-minute word from someone who's leaving for a flight, and then we'll come back to the rest of them. Sure. So again, the topic about post-pandemic is extremely important for all of us, not just in the Middle East, but pretty much global. And ministries have been taking a lot of initiatives to make sure that they can lead that kind of path for us. Ministry of Education in Egypt have been taking leaps of that kind of adoption, of like figuring out the best of what can work for the students during the pandemic and post-pandemic. And it takes me extreme pleasure that Dr. Ayman Ashur is with us today, and he's going to give us a few words of update from his side. Dr. Ayman is the Deputy Minister of Higher Education from Egypt, and I'm personally very happy to see him here with us, and I'd like to introduce him to give him the microphone for a few minutes.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Professor Amr Izzat Salama, President of the Arab Universities Association, distinguished professors, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to extend the greetings of His Excellency Professor Khalid Abdel Ghaffar. First of all, I would like to extend the greetings of His Excellency Professor Khalid Abdel Ghaffar, the Minister of Higher Education and Scientific Research in Egypt, and his warm wishes for a successful conference and event. In fact, in order to achieve the goals set by the 7th Acts in Egypt's Vision 2030, the Egyptian Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research has a main goal of internationalization of the university education, becoming the official education within the world, especially in the MENA area, since the launch of study in Egypt. As a presidential initiative patronized by His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Study in Egypt is aware that an increase of internationalization in the education sector is a major contributor to the growth of the global higher education market as it integrates intellectual and international dimensions for teaching and research. Actually, the current number of international students who were admitted only at Egyptian public universities this year for the current academic year, undergraduate about 20,424 students, while our postgraduate students are reaching 7,328, confirming there is a reassuring atmosphere that dominates the quality of university education in Egypt. Internationalization has become a strategy adopted by many higher education institutes to attract both students and staff. This was achieved by developing the ranking status of the Egyptian universities globally and providing guidance and support to international students about studying in Egypt. The whole operation is led bearing in mind the basic concepts of digital transformation and the both principles of scientific research originally and sustainably, as interest in the knowledge economy encourages innovation. It is worth mentioning that the modern Egyptian academic programs post some very exceptional measures that a wider international audience like such as petroleum engineering and mining, aerospace engineering, faculty of navigation, and faculty of agriculture and integrated industry. This, of course, beside the new interdisciplinary and the transdisciplinary programs in our universities. Well, once again, I would like to wish for you successful event. Thank you very much.
Dr. Ayman, thank you very much for your kind words and for your time with us, and very appreciated. And once again, my apologies. I honestly think that you're getting were worth not being cut off. I wanted to make sure kind of we talk about them and we haven't into that. So I know we owe one answer on this table. So you answered question 2, and she was on the first question, or do we? No, you pretty much cover both. Maybe
before getting the second question, since I have some time.
Yep.
I just want to emphasize, a couple of points, if you allow me.
If you can just speak a little bit to the microphone. I'm
sure.
Pass the mic there.
So maybe it's worth to mention that Boclips' journey has started in 2014. And actually, it came from, or maybe it was built on top of, let's say, a concept that Dr. Asma yesterday has mentioned, which is learner-driven, individualized learning experience. So the son of the founder was like the main driver for the whole idea of Boclips, where he was heavily busy on let's say the web, trying to find content that is relevant to his day-to-day learning activities and to make his assignments, etc. So the founder thought that, okay, it makes sense that we really try and bring as many rich media content as possible and make it easily accessible to the students. That was the initial idea. And then since then, things were progressed. We had the platform, we had then this analytics engine, and then we are now implementing machine learning and artificial intelligence to individualize, personalize, and programmatically push content based on different customer needs. Of course, that happens with our partnership. So our focus was mainly on K-12. And then almost a year and a half, a couple of our clients who are actually working on both areas, they came to us and they said, okay, you have done a good job with us on, let's say, the K-12, and we want to, take advantage and leverage what we have done and take it up to the higher education. So we looked back, we actually double-checked on our content, and we found out that, okay, we have a good number of higher education relevant content. It was basically focusing on the first couple of years of the universities, and that actually helped our partners to do some kind of, or to build some kind of maybe dual, if I can maybe explain it in a way that it's dual credit programs, where high school students can be prepared to move to the university with some advanced experience on what they are going to learn and what they are going to acquire from the specialties that they will learn in the universities. And then from that point, we started actually to focus more on content acquisition that is for the higher education. And we managed to, as you noticed, or as I mentioned, during the last year and a half, our acquisition has went up by 50%, because we expanded the outreach to content creators that are focusing on higher education, beside our ongoing K-12. And also our partnerships with higher education institutions have grown, and then we started to learn more. So we came here and to just see exactly what we can do more and how we can align and adapt our efforts, our, let's say, offerings, our content to some extent, to make sure that we, in collaboration with the thought leadership, maybe add some value and do some, let's say, positive effect on the future of learning and teaching approach. So I just wanted to emphasize that, and sorry for my delay on taking your question.
Thank you very much. This is interesting presentation. I think in higher education, we really need this kind of content. You know, we are moving to online and asynchronous online learning, and asynchronous online learning depending on the content that is ready. It is important for us for two aspects. First, to reduce the cost.
Exactly.
So I would like to know the financial feasibility of this project on us as higher education institution, and the other one to ensure the quality. Having a very good content developed by a specialist or expert in a field, maybe in many cases will be better than a material developed by a tutor or assistant tutor. So it is very good for two aspects, financial aspect and the quality aspect for higher education. So I would like to know what is the financial feasibility if the cost of this content is too high for the institute you work with. Maybe many of higher education will not move. We want it for quality, however, the financial feasibility is important for us. We would like to reduce the cost per students to increase the access to higher education. So my question about financial feasibility of this project, and my other question is about, we are an inclusive institution. We have students with learning differences, and the students with learning differences, they are kind of special needs students, some of them autistic or autism spectrum or financial difficulties. I would like to know to what extent this content can be suitable for them, for students. If the content is available, is good for a slow learner, for example, to repeat it again and again. And this is very good from a quality perspective. I would like to what extent it's give opportunity for a student with learning differences. For example, we have visual students, they are not depending on their ears, they would like to read the subtitles on the videos. Some students, they would like to see motion and, especially for practical courses. I would like to what extent this content cover all the students to make it a good experience for them and to allow the student with the special needs and learning differences can learn on the same as other students from different groups or categories. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rima. I really appreciate your questions. I'll start by maybe, giving you let's say the business model we are working with. So we actually doing like a revenue share with our content providers. However, our agreements with them is almost standard, which makes it actually more financially applicable to the different educational institutions, where they can, for example, we have been working with a consortium of universities, basically in Jordan, where we are offering like a massive, let's say, access to the whole students in that consortium, and then that will reduce the cost on the individuals. So if you are telling me, okay, if I'm, for example, like a small, let's say, a school with a couple of thousands of students, then I can work with you to, for example, package the content that is relevant to their specific needs. You might not need to access like the 2 million videos, or you might not need to access every interactive material that I have. That because now, as I mentioned, we have from K to 12, and then we have for higher education. So we can customize the package to fit into different age group, into different also subjects. So let's say you have some difficulties in science and math, let's say, so you are not focusing much in maybe languages or in history. So we can package that one, and that all will affect the price. So the good thing about Boclips is that we are flexible. And our content partners are eager to, add value, but at the same time, we are helping them to sustain. So these content providers, I'll give you a small example. One of them, we interviewed him. He was actually a university instructor, and he started recording or making some educational videos since 2014 and putting them on YouTube. He mentioned that he couldn't cover his cost up till 2019. So it took him 5 years to generate money. And where was that money coming from? It's from ads. So even a student who's watching will really be distracted. Maybe the ad is not even culturally appropriate for our own students. So Boclips is now helping these content creators from different aspects, either individuals who are really having like, rich materials that they are building for their students in the schools or even in the universities. We bring them on board. We help them enrich their content. We help them tag it to different, for example, keywords that help make it more searchable. And then we give them some feedback from our clients. Like I can, for example, give you access and you give me a feedback. So that feedback will be, shared with my content partner and encourage him to adapt and make sure that their next production will really meet the end user expectation. So you can look at us as a consortium, big one, where we bring both institutions, education institutions, and content creators. And from the data that we collect from end users and also from, let's say, the goals that our partners are trying to achieve, we feed this back to our content creators and let them, enhance their development and adapt to what these institutions or the students in these institutions are looking for. So cost-wise, actually is manageable. So you can, like we do both. Big publishers, for example, are interested to take the content and commercialize it on their own publications. So they pay once for a download, and then they can use it for up to 5, 10, 20 years, for example. However, for institutions who are really would love to have current access to the content, we give them a subscription model. It depends on the number of students they have, as I mentioned, the number of subjects they are interested in. And that will, and when we go, for example, for a wider, let's say, number of institutions, that will reduce the cost in everyone. So we are eager, to look for new partnerships with higher education institutions to try our let's say approach, to try our platform, test it, and then together work to adapt it and make it accessible to these students. So that will come to your next question about accessibility. So we started looking into that. Now, for example, we have subtitles. We can have first of all, we have captions. So somebody can watch and also read. We have subtitles whenever needed, so we translate it. We have also audio descriptions. So even if someone that cannot see, for example, and they want just, depending on their listening skills, they can understand, or they can from the audio description, they can, get more knowledge from the video. Similar to the podcasts, for example. So we have video, we have podcasts, and we have interactives, which technically it's like HTML5, for example, materials that it's more like manipulatives, where the student can have their hands on and try, play with their fingers, with their mouse, with their keyboard, and just make a try and see the result and add to their experience in manipulating with these materials. So we would love to understand, for example, if there are more accessibility demand or different type of accessibility that we need to consider. We have, let's say, the core. We have the partnerships when it comes to, let's say, technical partnerships. So we can adapt. We can, for example, offer and work together to resolve such challenges. So any outcome, any feedback, any, for example, opportunities that anybody, for example, has now, maybe a bulb comes up that, okay, we can do this. We are more than, or he or she is more than welcome to come to us and talk. And we are here to, again, help and achieve some of the goals that this forum is looking after. And at some point, hopefully adding value to the educational industry.
Hashem, this is great kind of overview. I mean, I was going to ask you about the accessibility because I'm big on inclusivity, especially for students who are visually impaired, and I wanted to make sure that's covered. But I'm kind of curious, from what you're seeing, your experience with the organization, the kind of content, what is your biggest kind of age group that you guys serve at this point with these kind of rich content? Is it mostly like in the younger generation, or does it go higher up in terms of age?
Frankly speaking, we are across all the ages. So we have for example, it depends also on the organization we are working with. So we have edtech platforms and also online publishers who are focusing on higher education. And we have, huge projects going on with them. We are mapping hundreds of videos to their different learning outcomes at the higher education level. And we started with the first 2 years in the higher education. Now we are expanding because we have focused more on the content acquisition. Initially, we were on K-12 so we started from kindergarten up till higher education, and now also we have moved towards, or we are looking at the professional development also, like corporate, training at some point. So professional skills development is also a focus. So we are everywhere, because again, we have really I call it like a gold mine that can easily be manipulated or adapted to different needs and different age groups. So learning is a lifelong journey.
Absolutely.
It doesn't stop, and I think we can contribute to that journey at some level.
Absolutely. And the reason I was asking is I could always tell the younger generation, and I'm talking like from first grader all the way to 12, is learning so differently than the higher education. That's one. Second, as a father of two kids, one of which my wife, bless her, like she always focused on him carrying a book, not an iPad. So he's still like traditional kind of method of learning. But I've seen him many times trying to pinch zoom into something, and that tells me when you have rich content, the expectation is different from someone who's 8 or 9 or 10 than someone like kind of in higher education age. I have a question. Actually, I'm going to turn it around, and maybe that would be good for the two of us, because I come from more of the edtech side of business than the content, and I'm curious from the audience in the higher education, if you can share with us, what are you doing right now in your institute or school in terms of enriching your edtech platform with content? What kind of scenario are you following? Is it more on the teachers to work on their content? Are you actually using a platform that helps you to come up with a rich content for your end users? And I would love to hear from a couple if possible. And first one would be free. So the question again, from you as an institute, who creates the content on your campus? Is it a task that now your faculty or teachers took upon themselves, or is it that technology platform? And the microphone over here, please. Thanks, Dr. Reem.
You hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for this question. This is a very challenging task currently in higher education, because academic staff, they want to go back to before COVID-19 and go back to physical classes. And resistance is always there, because it is easier to go to the classroom and deliver a physical classroom, normal physical classroom. Currently, we ask academic staff to develop the content, and we face a lot of challenges. Therefore, I say that this kind of a project will be useful for us to ensure the quality, because we know exactly what is in the videos, and we benchmark these videos. We know that it's come from experts and similar to what's delivered to any other institution across the other countries. So it is good for quality. Now our academic staff, they are doing their best. However, they are not very good in technology, and they are struggle. We trained them over the past 2 years to deliver asynchronous courses, which will be available for students to learn anytime. However, they still struggle. We need help from technology and from other companies to help them. They are very expert in their field, but to put this expertise in a video and make it easy for students to understand is not an easy task. So we always need help from other companies. Currently, our academic staff are doing, but we with them are struggle and facing a lot of challenges, because maybe I don't want to say they are not capable. However, they are not the best who can do this videos for our students and meet the standards we are looking for in these videos. The other thing, having these videos will ensure the consistency. Sometimes academic staff, when they deliver a synchronous online learning, such as on Team, they deliver different content to different groups. For example, if I have different groups to teach them marketing, the same content, it will not be exactly the same. So having asynchronous videos so the student can learn to ensure the consistency, the same content, the same quality delivered to all the students, even over the different groups. So if I answer your question, yeah, academic staff with lots of challenges.
You definitely did, and I'll tell you something actually interesting. I was on your campus, I think about 3 or 4 years ago, must have been like a year before COVID, and I was a keynote speaker in your e-learning biannual event. and similar kind of discussion. And I found the staff in Bahrain Polytechnic was like very eager on creating their own content, but limitation was there. So and I'm glad that you kind of, answering to the other side of it. Hence why when I was listening to Hashem, I felt like it has the answer to what many academic would want. They would want to have their content. They need to still have kind of a way to edit or kind of have it look more professional, but they were still basic enough in the instructional design techniques and all of that to be able to push that online. So, and I could share that being, someone who taught online, taught on campus and university level, and I feel like that's always a limitation with faculty member. But no, definitely agree with you, and thank you for answering that. Can I take one more comment from different part, kind of different country, if someone else can share with us, how are the academics or how are you expecting kind of content to be created on your campus? Is it part of the academic staff or is it admin, or is there a technology like what Hashem was just presenting today? Okay, we have one in the back.
Assalamu alaikum. I'll just speak about the experience of academics from my country, from Sudan. And it is totally up to the lecturer or the professor or the person delivering the contents and the course. Nobody's got any say on what you teach or what you present and how you teach or how you present. So it's all left to an individual, and that's why it is very important to develop every single member of the staff to make sure that the contents are up to a good level and the delivery is as well good, and beside the resources that are in a way we can say lacking as well. So totally different from the experience of the other colleague. Thank you.
That's very interesting, and I know we don't have K-12, so I'm not going to extend it to K-12 at this point, but I found it in kind of my limited experience in that domain, it's very similar to higher education, where it's still kind of the teachers more than the academic staff, they have very limited hours of what they can do and limited also experience of what they can do with the technology. I can speak on a personal level. My mother-in-law is also a teacher, 25 years, and she still struggles with that kind of approach. So again, I find the technology to me is something more important, especially curating data from different areas and so on.
Exactly, yeah. So just to comment, so like our mission is to make it, time, efforts, and even financially applicable to content design in general. So what we are like trying to do is to help instructional designers, whether they are teachers, whether they are, for example, faculty members who wants really to build synchronous or asynchronous, for example, materials for their students, to easily find and also easily embed some kind of enrichment. Even if it will not be core, it is to some extent an enrichment to what they are building or to the course or the program they are building for their students. So technology can also like facilitate the individualized and personalized learning. So based on like the content material, whether it's audio, video, or interactives, the machine can really connect it with the students at the right time, at the right, let's say, moment, where if he's teaching about different topics, the system will really keep pushing these to help them engage what they are doing and not to be disconnected. So like there are sequences, there are, for example, different aspects for the same topic. And one important actually element we started really to find some, or like or massive interest, especially from higher education, is the news. So we are partnering with a couple of news channels, and we take their content that can be used in educational context, and we offer it to different instructional designers, and they find it really valuable. Why? Because they make sure that the content they are building is really current, and it's also linked to what is happening around them. So like the student can correlate between what he's watching on a video or what he's trying to learn in a textbook or in any program with what's happening around him. So this will really bring some contextual, let's say, element to the learning and also to the teaching elements.
Totally agree. Thank you, Hashem. And we have one more question in the back.
Thank you for the interesting presentation. I just have a question, because from our experience as content creators, we felt and also assessment providers. We felt that assessment management systems and learning management systems, when combined, you lose a lot of features in each one. So are you experiencing this, so in content, for example, or not? So really my question is, how do you actually, because universities do assessments and they actually do also provide content in the form of courses or seminars or lesson plans. And that's one is through a management and a content management system, and the other is an assessment management system. If you've, especially if you've got 50,000 or 10,000 or 5,000 even students taking an assessment concurrently. So the features that you would do to develop an assessment system is not the same as the ones you would do. They don't correlate. And plus, you will find a lot of assessment providers have invested millions in their platform. And I'm sure the same exists. I mean, the likes of Coursera and Cortex and all the other sort of, again, platform providers for universities. So how do you actually cope with this?
Okay, so our let's say main focus, or currently, if you are telling me where do you exist, like I'm telling you, I'm in learning management system. So our content is being used again to build online courses, and also we have some tools which we can like add as a layer on top of what we are offering to maybe it's not an assessment, but it's more like a self-evaluation by the student. So let's say now we are implementing like a quiz, for example, on top of the video. So the student can watch and then can answer, and then the system can tell the student if he really got, for example, the idea or the knowledge that he is supposed to, and let him move on. Now, assessment is an interesting, actually, point. I think there is an opportunity for us to be part of it, but it depends on what kind of, or how does the assessments being built. Is it only questions, or are there materials and some questions, comes around it? If the later, then again, we have the materials. So we actually started tagging our content based on the context that it's being used. So we have content, like you can filter our content based, okay, I want a hook, for example, materials to start a lesson with. I want an explainer, for example. I want a review, let's say. So based on these filters, you can get the element and you can use it in the right place within your course. So from assessment point of view, maybe again like a review or maybe a hook element can be used, and then questions can be built on top of that hook element. So I cannot recall now when you ask me if we exist in a joint, let's say, system where they have LMS plus assessment in the same place. We are more into LMS, but I think assessment will be an interesting also element for us to do some research around it. So thank you very much for your question.
We have one question online. So the question is, do you want me? You can put online. The question is, who creates the content that ultimately goes into your learning management system?
Okay, so we partner with more than 400 content creators, as we mentioned. So it comes either individuals who used to be really faculty members, instructors, teachers. We have also some like content creation companies who really build content for education on a commercial side. So just to name a brands, as maybe I mentioned in my presentation, we have TED, we have Smithsonian, we have news channels actually who have their news archives and news features materials that can be used in educational context. So content creators are coming from different places, different backgrounds, different areas, but they are all about education. That is the core thing, or that is like the joint, let's say, if I can call it, attribute between these content creators.
Excellent. Hashem, thank you very much for your session, for your time. Again, content was such a topic that I'm really glad that we spent the time to answer to it. Really appreciate it. Thank you once again.
Thanks a lot, and look forward to